Welcome back to the channel. It's Mopar Man 1978. I'm here inside the house today for a little bit. Still kind of getting over my sickness with all the diet change and then finding out I had to go back to the hospital. Find out I had gastritis, which is the inflammation of the lining of your esophagus, stomach, and colon. But anyway, I'm going to be doing a doctor visit to have them take a scope and look down my throat and my stomach and all that stuff to see exactly what I do have. But unfortunately, since I've been out of work for almost a week and not eating a lot and pretty much expelling it out the backside, I've lost quite a bit of weight. I went from 205 down to 189 pounds. I weighed myself yesterday on the digital scale. So I'm slowly trying to eat more meals since I've had a few days of relaxation. Because my stomach has shrunk and stuff like that. I wasn't used to eating solid meals. So I've slowly started building back up. Yesterday was the first day I could start drinking a little bit of like fruit juice and stuff like that. To where it wasn't too much on my stomach. Eating just a little bit bigger meals. This morning I had scrambled eggs and hash browns and stuff like that. So, but anyway, I just wanted to update you on that. So I'm slowly but surely doing better. I was back to work yesterday for a few hours. Luckily, it wasn't a 8 or 9 hour shift. So anyway, but today's video is going to be focusing on Thermoquad carburetors. Of course, there's a lot of videos out there from different channels. Some of them we've never even heard of. But I figure I'd give you my version and give you the information that I've learned, and then people that have tons more knowledge on me, especially one particular guy. They call him basically like the godfather of Thermoquads. Jabo from Bad Tree Productions knows who he is. It's Ken Manley. He has his own Facebook group, Ken Manley Thermoquads, and anything related to Thermoquad. He knows the ins and outs, little tech tips, little tricks, little modifications. Whether you're just trying to fix a stock Thermoquad or you're wanting one for full out racing, he can tell you what size the orifice to drill out. If the orifice is only 2/1000ths of an inch, he'll tell you that it needs to be probably drilled out to about 4/1000ths of an inch to see if it might be cure a slight issue on, fuel mixture, changing out jets or whatever it may be. But anyway, in this video here on the desk today, I have a Thermoquad. This is the other one that I have already stripped down, cleaned. It's just waiting to be rebuilt. This is another small block Thermoquad. And the way you could tell, the easiest way, instead of having to try to look up all the numbers, this was an emissions Thermoquad from the late 70s, early 80s, just like the one on my pickup. Nothing wrong with them, especially if you're looking for a real good fuel economy, but it still has the power of the big secondaries. These are the ones to get. And I'll show you how to do the little mods to get rid of all the emissions crap off them and stuff like that. But anyway, see how I've got this broke down in sections. There's the body. Okay, now here's the base plate. Sorry for the little dog inside. She, anytime she hears somebody talking, she automatically thinks a stranger's in the house and's got to bark unless she finds out who it is. Anyway, as you can tell, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different vacuum ports. A lot of that you can just cap off. I buy you can buy it through Moroso, or you can buy it from O'Reilly's over in the section where it has the little individual containers of the different size black rubber vacuum hose. There's a little a container of assorted different color vinyl vacuum plugs, and I recommend those over the piece of crap do it right rubber caps, vacuum caps. And Menards in the nuts and bolts aisle does have a little pull-out bin of assorted vinyl plug-off caps too. The vinyl caps, they may shrink a little bit with the heat, but they last 10 times longer than the rubber ones. The rubber ones just dry rot and fall apart and cause vacuum leaks. But anyway, and a lot of people don't know that vacuum leaks can affect Thermoquad carburetors because they're all about running off vacuum. Anyway, this here is the cam lever. Every time you open up the throttle, it wants to raise that rod up. And the cam's up back underneath here, by the way. Anyway, the way you can tell on whether it be a Thermoquad for a small block or a big block, you just I can flip it over or whatever, however. But you measure from side to side here on the primaries. If it's 1 3/8, it's definitely for a small block. If it's 1 1/2, it's for a big block. And sometimes they put, and these don't always truly run it. Oh, they did a flow test. These are supposed to run at like 800 or 850 CFM. They come close to it. And then if you get the ones that are for the 1 1/2 primaries, they're supposed to be for big blocks, and they're supposed to be rated at 1000 CFM, and they don't always flow at 1000 CFM. They're a little off. Anyway, so then put this. Oh, and the other thing too is you always want to check every little nook and cranny on these plastic housings for warpage or hairline fractures. What you can do to check for hairline fractures is you can sprinkle baby powder over this stuff, and if the baby powder catches in the cracks, it'll illuminate the crack in plastic. You can do that on your heads, your block and stuff. If you don't have the money to go and get it magnaflux, it will show up. It's a cheap hillbilly trick, redneck trick, whatever you want to call it, to do. Then the other thing is these fuel plugs, these caps that are glued on from the factory. For years I've been searching for what type of glue to put on here, and everybody's like, oh, you just put a little bit of JB Weld on there. Well, the problem was I did that and the cap fell back off. This was years ago, before I knew what I know now. And so I use this brand, not this brand here, not JB Weld, but I don't have a container of it with me right here now, but it's called Marine Tex. It's a separate word, marine, and then there's a little line, and then it says TEX. You can buy it on Amazon. It'll come in a almost a 3-inch long container, it's about an inch around. It's white with a metal tin cap, and that's the compound. And then you have it comes with a little vial like this right here. This is part of the kit of hardener, and you mix it up. It was meant to be for marine use, like for boats, repairing stuff on boat bodies and whatnot. It's cold and heat resistant, and it is 100% gas proof, not gas resistant. It's actually proof. They actually did a test, because the way I found out about this product was I stumbled across like a Buick or a Pontiac article about the guy wanting to fix his quadrajet and want to know if there was a goop that sealed off certain stuff so the carburetor wouldn't cause fuel leaks internally. and they said that they submerged that Marine Tex in gasoline for 48 hours, and it never peeled, bubbled, caused a leak. And the only thing I do is if you're going to put it on anything, you always prep the surface, you always sand it with kind of a rough grit, clean it off, and then you have to, when you put it on, when you smear it on or you use a little stick to apply it, take the very end of it and smear it flat with the end of your finger. I recommend wearing nitrile gloves because it says skin irritation on the container. And then you just, I already did it to this on these caps just to be on the safe side. I already put a thin coating on there, and then once it fully cures, it takes like 48 hours, a little bit more, and it's completely sandable like Bondo. And then I just took a cheap pack of fingernail files, and I went around the sides here to make sure it would clear these ports right here. And so anyway, there's that. So that's on there. And then another thing I did is I don't always trust the in the rebuild kits, because some of the rebuild kits like you get at O'Reilly's are getting pretty cheap. The flat O-rings that go down in here that press up against the top edge of this here. And I don't know if you can see it in there. I have to put the light on. There you go. That flat spot, that flat circular spot down there in the bottom of the well. It's supposed to crush it and make a seal. Well, it doesn't, because of the quality of the rings. They're not doing that anymore. So what I did is I went and bought an assorted plastic container of those green rubber O-rings that you use for like plumbing, or but mainly for like automotive use, for like around connecting air conditioning supply lines, or they have to have or they're pressurized lines. I just found the one that has the correct outer diameter, and if it was a little thick, because I took a caliper and measured the outer diameter of the replacement seals, and all I did is I took the rubber O-ring, the green one, put it on a hard surface with some, and taped down a piece of like 220 or 320 grit sandpaper, stuck my finger on there, and just gently ran that seal across that sandpaper, flipped it over, did the same thing, kept remeasuring it with the caliper, got it down where it's within specs. It would still have a nice snug fit. Put them in there, put it back on, and that's the one that's on the carburetor. It's on the truck. And then before I forget, the other problem is too, that piece of tubing that they supply that goes here in the kits, with today's fuel, it seems to make the lines a little soft, especially where it connects here on these two ports, and it can cause air to be sucked in with the fuel and cause it to lean out when it goes to give a squirt. So I got away from that. And you can heat up if you clean the tube out, you can take a Bic pen, a regular white tube Bic pen, and the tube that the ink comes in, it's made out of polypropylene. It's gas proof, chemical proof, and you can heat it up just enough, slide this onto this port here and let it cool down, and then you can bring it over, leave a little slack, and then do the other end. You have to measure it, heat that up, slide it on there, let it cool down, and it'll compress down on there. That works too, but the best one out of everything is at O'Reilly's. If you go and get, they have rolls of it of different thick or different inner diameters. It's the yellowish, somewhat transparent fuel line for like weed eaters and gas and riding mowers and just other applications. You want to take this in with you and then find out what the correct piece of tubing is, and buy maybe, I think it only comes in 1 foot sections. you know, however many feet you need, but you only need a 1 foot section, and then you have to cut the excess off. And that is 100% gasoline proof, and that'll help that. And then let's see here. Also, this one right here, this goes down inside. Let me get a pointer so my fingers are not in the way. It goes right in there. There we go. Right inside there. And we don't use the ball. We use that little brass fitting with the point on it. And then what you do is, a lot of people overlook this, is once you put that in there, take this top half, have it positioned on something where you're not gonna bust anything off, you know, like these little fuel ports that connects to the hose, that sort of thing. Have it anchored to something where it's not going to wobble. And then what you do is you can take a little punch, or a little rod, or even a drill bit, and as long as it's the correct width and it's not going to wobble on you, and you just take that and then take a small little hammer and give it a light tap. And you don't want to brute force that down onto that, but what that does is that helps that nose on that little brass valve there seat down where it's supposed to. Because what'll happen is, I'll show you for an example. What'll happen is you might have it sit down in there like that, but there could be a little bit of a gap from all the years of fuel coming up in there and wear and tear, so it's not properly seated, and you will get a lean squirt because it's sucking in air besides the fuel. So by tapping it, once it sits back, once you tapped it, it creates a new seal, a tight seal, until you go to kick or pull down on the throttle, and the plunger helps push the pressure, and it'll release that brass valve to pop up. But at least you'll know that's sealed once it's sitting in there like it's supposed to. So that's another little tip. And now we move on to the adjuster, because the metering rod sits on each side of this and goes down through the housing of this lid. So what you want to do is, another thing, when I take these out, they call this the I don't know the proper term. I just call it the metering rod tree, adjuster tree, because it kind of looks like a tree when you take it out of there. Anyway, this port in here, hold on just a minute. I had to take that little retainer off there, off the top. It's got a little screw on there. But anyway, as you can see, there's a spring in there, and how it bounces. Well, you can kind of hear that there's kind of a little bit of something rubbing, catching in there a little bit. You will have to be real careful, because down inside this, it's got a nylon sleeve, and what I've had to do is I've had to take that out, this adjuster screw, and fill that in with JB Weld's like a special plastic. I have it around here somewhere. It's a 2-part epoxy, but it's a special hardened plastic. It resists temperatures and a certain amount of pressure, and then I have had to re-thread it. So but anyway, what I do is I take, I buy one or two sheets of the maroon auto body Scotch-Brite pads, and the gray ones. The gray ones have a softer grit on them. And what I do is I clean all these spots here, this section here, this section here, and this section here. I just scrub them so they're real smooth, clean them up to where they're real smooth. And then in order to get down in here to clean this port up, I've got several gun barrel cleaning rods, and I use this one for like a 22, and then I put the brush on there for the 22 to scrub the barrel out with, and then I take a strip of that Scotch-Brite pad and I wrap around it the full length of the brush, and then I take it, set it down in there, and just like I'm honing a cylinder in an engine, I go up and down and around in there, get that all cleaned up nice and shiny. And then I go in there and then I take a force of microfiber cloth down in there with some rubbing alcohol, and I clean all that out to get all the dust and stuff out of it. And then once I get all this nice and smooth without taking too much material off, then I put the spring back in there, and then I test it, and then see how you have to have these little knobs here facing towards the housing, and then you test it. You have to put the retainer back on, and then you have to press down, and then what you have to see is if the arms, especially them little tabs on each side, the little tabs, it has to be just barely rubbing on the back side, and you can see there's a little mark right there and right there where they've been rubbing. So you want to clean all this up too, get that smooth, and then kind of gently bend these to where you're not putting tension on the cylinder, so everything slides up and down like it's supposed to be. And it's when you press it down, it's supposed to pop back up like that while still having the little retainer on it. And that's very important to make sure it's and then what you do, okay, so now I got it back on. See how it freely moves by itself like it's supposed to? It doesn't, I mean, there's a little, see that slack in there? It needs to be adjusted a little bit so there's not this side play. But anyway, you get the idea. And then when you go to adjust this, you have to press this all the way down, and unfortunately you can use a special screwdriver, a long screwdriver, to get down in here if you don't want to take this retainer off. But if you take this retainer off, you got to be careful and not let it pop back up, because you pop it back up, the metering jets will come out and you'll have to reattach them and sit them down in there and then get this repositioned. But anyway, you unscrew this counterclockwise to fully take there's a rod at the bottom of this besides having the threaded top, and it sits down on top of, and that rod sits right on top of this lever arm right here. It sits right on top of it. So then what you do is once you get it unscrewed to where you don't have this bottoms out completely, you start to turn it clockwise until, let me put this back on there. Like I said, you start turning this clockwise until, and while you have this down, of course I can't do it while I'm holding the phone and doing this at the same time, but anyway, you use both your fingers, your thumb and your index finger on both sides. You keep it pressed down with the spring while the spring is still in there, and you get a hobby drill like this, or you can get a taller screwdriver, but it has to have a tip like this in order to get inside that little groove on that adjuster. And you adjust that clockwise until you just start to feel that rod trying to push up on this whole assembly piece here. And then, so say if the adjuster was turned out and it's here, or if it happens to be here, so what you'll do is you'll count one, that's one full turn, and then you'll do a half a turn to get started. 1.5 turns should do it. It shouldn't be any more than that unless you have a modified engine. I just have that 318 with the 340 cam in it, so that's what I did on this yesterday, and it's working great. I rechecked because I thought you just did it to where you just turn it to where you just start to feel the arm trying to be pushed up, these arms. But I found out once it gets to that point, you have to do a full turn and then a half a turn. So I was off on my adjustment a little bit. That's what Ken Manley told me yesterday, because I'm part of that Facebook group of Thermoquad owners. So anyway, you do that, and then the other thing is you have this vacuum assist that bolts down on the passenger side here. The way you can tell is if you're I'll just take the hose off of there. The way you can tell if this is bad is if you press in, hold that, and if it just loses all pressure, it doesn't retain any pressure, and it just pops right back out, or it slowly backs out, the diaphragm has to be replaced. Or if you press it in and it holds pressure but it slowly releases, or instead of going straight out and it wants to come out at an angle, and then kind of like a worm crawling out of a hole, replace the diaphragm. Because as soon as you press in the diaphragm on a new one, hold it, it should be holding, and then when you let up, it should come straight out. This piece here should come straight out. So that's another little thing to look for. And then to set this here for see how I got, that's probably not the proper adjustment. Depending on your type of engine, you would have to have a special tool. Usually I just use a wide screwdriver, real wide one that fits within the gap of this crosshatch here, and this is your lock nut. You undo that just a little bit, and then you have a skinnier screwdriver to go in and actually turn the deal. And what you do is you turn it clockwise to take the spring tension off this air door, and you let it drop. And then what you do is if you have this outer lock ring snug just enough, you can just start turning the inner adjuster rod screw, and then you start turning it counterclockwise until the door just comes up and stops. Then what you do is you do like you did over here, 1.5 turn, and put tension on it, and then re-go and check and take it for a drive and kick in the 4-barrel. If it still has a tiny bit of bog to it when you kick in these, you're going to want to go to the other half a turn, which will make it 2 full turns for tension on this. And you just have to play with it a little bit to figure it out. But and what I will let you know too, there's a lot more stuff that can be done as far as like how high the plunger needs to be sitting, and then the adjustment on the rod that goes from the from the bracket here down to the throttle bracket. You can bend that rod there to take the slack out, but there's measurements you have to do. But anyway, and then what I do is on my 318 to get it fully, when I get it fully warmed up, to set the proper, I use a little aftermarket vacuum gauge that has like red, green, and then blue or something like that color coded. And the closer you get to the blue, or the better it is. And you can set your timing, your idle, and your mixture screws to that gauge as well. And usually I'll screw these screws all the way in, and then what I do, let's see here. Yeah, so if on one side you screw the screw all the way in until it stops and it's flat like this at the 9 and 3 position, I take the side of the screw at the 3 position and use that as my marker, and I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll count up to I do 8 on my Thermoquad for my truck, and then the other side, because on mine, the passenger side, oh, when you close the fuel mixture screw, it's always at the 9 and 3 position, and then the driver's side is always at, I want to say, the 11 o'clock position. So then I'll just back them out to 8. I count half turns. So, you know, like 1, 2, 3, I count all the way up to 8 for my starting point, start the vehicle up, use my gauge, and then I'll start to do a half a turn on each one until it gets up to where it doesn't affect the needle on the gauge going over any further. And then I adjust the distributor and all that stuff. But anyway, there's that. And then also, 1-barrel and 2-barrel carburetors run best on 5 pounds of pressure, no less, no more. Edelbrock's Thermoquads run on 6, 6.5, no less, no more. Any less, you're going to have hesitation or stumbling issues, or bog. If you run any of the carburetors over what I just mentioned, from my experience, eventually you will have your float adjustments get out of whack, and you will start running a rich mixture. So get used. I bought one of them little Holley 4 psi to 9 psi psi, I should say, gas pressure regulators that comes in a kit with the mounting bracket and all that. And I run that with a gauge, a fluid filled gauge, a nice one from like Summit or Jegs. And that's what I do even on a 1-barrel or 2-barrel car. I do that with, because even the stock pumps can put out past 6 psi. I've seen them all the way up to 7.5, 8 pounds of pressure. And there may be somebody out there who goes, well, I ran my carburetor with 8 pounds of pressure and no issue. But yeah, but was it running rich, or did you bother to check? Because mine is set for, since my truck's a daily driver, but I want a little performance, it's set for the it's maximum fuel economy on the 2-barrel. And then, of course, you won't get the fuel economy when you kick in the big secondaries. But that's another thing with these Thermoquads and Quadrajets. When you're running around on the 2-barrel, you're getting close to 200 CFM, while Edelbrock and Holley's and all that stuff are way over 200 CFM, so you're not getting very good gas mileage on your 4-barrel. So that's what I like about this. And then I'm trying to think of what else. Oh yeah, and these carburetors, like any other 4-barrel, like a lot of air flow. So do yourself a favor. It's, no matter how many times I've seen it, it's just horrible. Whether it be YouTube channels, car shows, whatever. Somebody's running a stock or slightly modified engine or full modified engine, big block, small block, slant 6, whatever, and they're running an old, crappy, filthy paper air filter on it. Get you a brand new, big air filter, or do like I do, K&N air filters. I only have to clean them every once in a while, and they do what they're supposed to do. And if you don't believe me, because a lot of people have talked trash about K&N filters, air filters, David Vizard swears by them. Not only do they increase horsepower by airflow, but they also trap particles. The gauze material in there, collects the big particles, and then the little feelers, what I call coming off the fiber material in there with the oil, collect all the real small little particles. But you're not restricting the airflow like a paper filter would, and you don't have to keep replacing the paper filters. But that's from my experience, and I've had these filters on my vehicles for years and no issues. And I live in Missouri with dust, dirt, pollen, all kinds of crap. You'd be surprised what I've washed out of them K&N air filters, and let them. You have to let them get bone dry after you degrease them and wash them, and then spray the special oil on them. But you don't want to go overboard with the oil, because if you get too much on the gauze material, you can clog the air cleaner and cause the vehicle to have a hard time starting up. But anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. I'm already at 35 minutes. Wow. Oh, and then also too, real quick, whether you have this type of factory fuel float or the brass float, usually these factory floats don't have what they call the toenail, the end, what looks like the end of a toenail on this. It's usually just solid. This one and the brass floats that do have what they have the toe looking thing, or the thumb look on the end of it. If they have it like this, measure from this top edge here on the toenail, or where the toenail area would be, down to the top of the gasket surface on here on the top of the housing, exactly 1 inch. And if it doesn't have this indentation here and it's just a solid flat piece and goes down, you measure from the very top of the flat part down here 1 inch, and it's like 32 or 33 millimeters if you're European or whatever. But we're Americans, we don't try to stay away from the metric crap. But anyway, other than that, if you have any questions, I'll probably do another. I'll tell you in another video on how I deal with this emissions. This is a bull vent, and I'll show you how I do that in another video. But anyway, covered a lot of stuff. Hope you enjoyed it. I know it was a long video, but until next time.